We have a hero, a legend. I don't want to blow too much smoke up his ass because he knows how much he's loved.
Thank you, Howie.
Barry Gibb is with us. No. Mark Lewisohn is here, and we're going to talk about the year that the Beatles didn't get back together. But there was so much Beatles in the air. It was a palpable thing. You know, as a kid, 1976 was the first calendar year where it was officially my thing. When I was 4, that's when everything else was put aside. Toys came second. Happy Days came second. Movies came second. I was under the spell and eager to know anything and everything. And it was all I thought about. And it coincided with a fever pitch, in America at least. I don't know what it was like in the UK, Mark. But a fever pitch. And it felt like they were going to get back together in New York. For whatever reason, it just felt like that's where it's going to happen. And what happened was John Lennon went home. Paul McCartney came back. George Harrison did a beautiful, beautiful record that no one cared about. And Ringo became a buffoon. Ringo became Gilligan. And it also, Paul McCartney coming back, underscored the fact that the band, the group, the Beatles, never would. And the Beatles could never have topped in 1976 what he did alone in 1976. There's no way that Ringo Starr or George Harrison could have gone on stage and backed him or each other with the prowess that he needed to be a top act. John Lennon's voice never would have stood an hour on stage, let alone 2.5. McCartney going for the gold, this Olympiad, this gorgeous Olympiad, that was the peak. When he walked into Twickenham, this is what he was hoping for. And through all of these channels and avenues and missed opportunities with shitty musicians and people with lame attitudes, he finally got there. But John Lennon was done with him, and the other two couldn't keep up. Mark, go.
Usually I hear you throw that to Bard and think, how do you follow that? And now it's my turn. I can't rhapsodize like you do, but I remember it vividly, 76 as a year. It was the year I turned 18, so I got the vote, and I was an adult, and I had a car, and I was crowned Beatles Brain of Europe at the end of that year. So that was a big year for me. It was the year of our hot summer. And it was the year that those of us who followed these things, which was not anything like as big a number as you might think, watched Paul take America. We watched it from afar. We had that tour that came to America in 76. We had that in the autumn of 75. To us, it was a 75 tour. And then he went to America. There was the postponement, right? Initially, it was going to be earlier, and then it got delayed. But that was the great year in Paul's first 10 years after the Beatles. It was Wings peak, undoubtedly. And we didn't hear anything of John. And 33 1/3 in the UK was nothing, really, nothing to speak of. He did some promotion for it, and it was good to see the guy. And I remember thinking how well he looked and how well he sounded. But no one really wanted to go and buy that record. And Ringo was, past where he had been.
But even when he was where he had been, he wasn't there in the UK. Like, those singles weren't burning up the UK charts.
No, he had... Photograph was pretty big, but I mean, he didn't have the number ones like he had in America. He was definitely bigger in America. And because of our incredibly high tax rates in those days, 76 was the year that Ringo disappeared because he went to live in Monte Carlo. And Paul was the brave one because he was staying despite the, 98%, I think it was the income tax rate at that time. But to actually emote on it, I mean, the Beatles were gone. They were never gone anywhere else in the world as much as they were gone in the UK. We washed our hands of them. They were so yesterday that it was really hard to be a fan of them at that point. And you kind of kept quiet about it.
It was a shameful kind of
pretty much
retro.
Pretty much. I mean, I had lots of discussions with people who said, but, they broke up years ago and, why can't you move on? And the way that they were loved here in the States was simply not present in the UK. There was this paternalistic thing about the fact that they're ours. But in terms of record sales and... there was a remarkable thing in 76, which was the re-release by EMI of the entire singles catalogue. And they all kind of flooded the charts. And it looked for a while like the Beatles were almost going to be as big as they had been. But that was just a campaign. It didn't really have any effect on public attitude. So when the first Beatles conventions took place in the UK, you could count the people easily.
Wow.
The one that I won the quiz at, there were less than 100 people there.
Wow. So it was like a 1969 Teddy Boy.
Yeah.
You know, did you ever see that Gene Vincent documentary?
No, I haven't.
69, and they show like this Teddy Boy thing, and it's the people, and it's so off and wrong.
It's the wrong decade.
Yeah.
That's the point. And 76 for Britain, in Britain, means punk.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean Beatles.
But the thing is, what I always thought of, and you talk what you said kind of circles back to it, they never left the consciousness in America. And it was always this pull to get them back in America by Americans. You never heard of some magnate from the Netherlands, putting together a fund for a reunion. It was always some blowhard American in a gross way.
Yeah, in ways that were never going to appeal to the Beatles. But I mean, the Beatles were bigger in America than anywhere else, and they had been for a long time. And you hadn't let go anything like as easily as we'd let go. So this was where they wanted to be, and Ringo divided his life between Monte Carlo and Los Angeles, and we only saw him whatever number of days he could come in without becoming a taxed individual again, which was 40-something, I think, per year.
With his kids living there.
Yeah. So much water had passed under the bridge since the Beatles had split up by 76, but really it was all about Wings. And then that tour, when it finished, concluded back in London as it had started, more or less. And I was at those shows. I saw that tour 4 times, twice in 75 and twice in 76. But even when they came back, it seemed to be slightly anticlimactic, funnily enough.
And he looked awful.
He had that moustache.
Yeah, and the short hair and still wearing those outfits.
Yeah, he had that strange moustache. And the show was much the same, which was a bit disappointing. The only
exactly the same.
He just added the 4 songs from Speed of Sound that he'd added during the course of Wings, or 4 Wings over America. But,
well, we'll get to the tour. Bard, 76 was a big year for you as a fan.
Certainly.
What's your overriding Beatles bicentennial?
We're young. We're the young Americans in 76, and the Red and Blue album, as we've discussed, exploded them again into the new generation. There's a new wave of Beatle people coming up, young people, through the early and mid 1970s. They never left the radio. Any glimpse you got of them every so often on television was a magical experience. The fever in 76, coinciding with the bicentennial, which he co-opted so brilliantly with Let 'Em In and that drum, and that was so cool. The major moment of 76 really is Silly Love Songs. That's the blow your mind, explode the world radio miracle. And it is. And it was omnipresent like a Beatles record, and it was brilliant. On any given day, I'll tell you it's his greatest record, because he's making fun of himself. He's making fun of everybody who made fun of him for years for writing those kind of silly songs. It's brilliant. It's the only thing he could do to make a commentary on the fact that he was always criticized for doing that very thing. But what's wrong with that? It's brilliant. I look around me, I see it isn't so. Oh no, people like songs like that. What's the problem with Yesterday? What's the problem with The Long and Winding Road? My Love. What's the problem with it? I don't have a problem with it. Do you?
And they don't have a problem.
And no one has a problem. When it's that good, when the horn line is that good, when the string line is that good, when you've got 3 independent melodies that he spoon feeds you one after the other, and then has the balls to collide and collapse onto each other. Linda and Denny never sang so good. The lyric, how could I tell you about my loved one? How can I do that? It's harder than you think, folks. So Silly Love Songs is an explosion of subtle cheeky McCartney brilliance.
But also, musically, you could tune in to any piece of that song and say, ooh, that's my favorite part. Ooh, I love that part.
It's all of it. The bass line alone, that bass line alone is a Smithsonian thing. It should be framed and bowed to daily. That bass line is crazy. I mean, my God, the whole world yet again. Thanks, Paul. How do you do it? And then he has he's so brilliant, this guy. He knows what he's doing. He's putting the question out there. Okay, you want to rap me? You want to knock me? All you do is knock me since I left my band. You knock me and knock me and knock me. But you know what? Nobody does it like me. And I love you. So great. How does someone, only a modern day Mozart, can take three melodies and make them work simultaneously?
And the coolest thing about Silly Love Songs is that it's anything but. That horn line, the bass line, the string line, the three simultaneous melodies, the lyric, the irony of it. Aside from Sir Duke, you're not hearing anything more sophisticated on the radio. Ever.
So, Silly Love Songs was in the air. I'm a kid. I heard it every day, 3 to 5 times a day. I knew it was Beatles. I knew it was great. That's the greatest voice at the top of his range.
And it was the biggest hit of the summer.
And it was the biggest hit of the year.
Yeah.
That is the biggest American hit of the year.
Song of the year. Billboard
That's
gave
it.
it, right?
Probably. It was, 6 or 7 weeks at number one straight.
It was 6, wasn't it?
I have no complaints. I'm very thankful for Silly Love Songs. Of course, you can only do it once, but I put Silly Love Songs right with Band on the Run as a major McCartney moment and achievement.
And with a little luck.
Yeah. And Uncle Albert and coming. I mean, yeah. And for me, obviously, Ebony and Ivory. But Silly Love Song stands alone in the McCartney canon as the moment where he outsmarted his critics. Mm-hmm. And that's a rare thing. He barely ever could. He barely ever did. And most of his love songs are pretty silly, and most of them are B-grade and or forgettable. But this one, in which he is writing a love song, but also commenting on the love song, its place in the culture, its importance to people, to human beings, the world round.
And
revelatory.
That's the thing also about him, is that in 76 and 72, there are the photos. This guy was always with his woman. This guy was always with his growing brood. He's always toting a baby around. Mm-hmm. And this is not Mick Jagger. This is not Rod Stewart. But you know what? He's better looking than them. Mm-hmm. And it's sexier, the guy with his wife. And he's not embarrassed, and he's got a kid in diapers. The kid's sagging diapers. There's always those, or Denny's carrying the baby. There was something that was so cool about that. Where it's, this, of course I'm not that. Why would I be that? I'm this now. Is there any attribution that Lennon said that to him, that the phrase Silly Love Songs comes specifically from John Lennon?
Not that I know of. I've never heard that there was such a thing. But it was the general temperature, wasn't it? It's another silly love song, as if there was something wrong with that. And I'm with Bard on that one. I don't love the song quite as much as Bard clearly does, and you do. But I do recognise that it has all those elements that you've suggested, outlined. And the ultimate one is that it's an answer to people in the best way possible. Because here's another one. If you don't like it, well, here's another one.
Yeah. Here I go again.
The expert politician. That's one of his great attributes, as we've seen for 50 plus years. This is a guy who knows how to navigate and negotiate his audience and disarm people and charm people. This is a great talent of this guy that you sit down with Paul McCartney and interview him, and he offers you a cup of tea. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the whole MO right there. Yeah. That's the greatness of McCartney as the public relations man. Lennon called him the greatest of all time in the winter. He's the greatest PR man of all time. I would offer that Silly Love Songs is one of the rare musical moments where the diplomat, genius, people person McCartney wins the day. Musically, by injecting that ability to disarm people. Well, yes, here's another. You'd think there's another one. Just like we say, how does he open a song? He's looking around. Here we are. After that genius introduction, that where
am I? What is
that?
This?
Is sensational record making.
Yeah.
I've yet to know what that is. What is there, a chain? What's going on?
Tractor,
Who knows?
Even in
It's-
the demo version, he's mouthing that. He knows it's going to
He
have
knows
an
it's
intro
coming.
like that.
The
yeah.
And I'll tell you,
sound.
that demo version, that's a hit single too. He could have put that out.
Yeah.
So right from the get-go, before he utters a word, you're in special territory. This is a moment happening. What is going on? Oh, there he goes again, crafting new ways of emoting sound to people's hearts immediately, and then surveying the landscape. You'd think, you'd think that people would have had enough of this shit. You'd think,
Yeah.
but you'd be wrong.
And what's great in the film when it shows this guy who, looks like an old man in Rock Show singing "What's Wrong with That." You see this guy who's probably 60, but it's like, oh my God, and even the old people are at the show and loving it. And it's so, everybody loves someone, and if they don't, they want to.
Yeah,
to.
They're poorer for it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all right. You all have to understand that I'm all right. This beautiful woman is next to me, and we made these kids. And when I finish doing my thing here, I go home with her, and we get into bed, and we have a life, because that's reality. So he's undercutting Lennon all the while, too. That's how he wins that. Silly Love Songs, that's how big that tune is, because he's like you said, you're referring to, well, did it happen? Did he say something? Well, you're just pizza and cold cuts, or whatever he said. You're just pizza and whatever he said. The New York reference that Lennon said to him to cut him down. He's always cutting him down. Yeah, he's light. The sound you make is music to my ears. Maybe, John, but you know what? I'm adjusted. I'm happy. And here I go again.
The great thing is, who is it that he wrote to? Was it NME, where it's like New York? That's probably, it'll take you a year. That's the amount of time it usually takes you.
Right.
Yes. And Lennon finds a family 5 years after McCartney. You know what I'm saying? And McCartney, God bless this guy. This guy never said, you know what? Fuck you. I was there first. I got it right. Never once outed this guy.
Yes and no. Artistically, later, when he got pissed, he tried to with Carnival of Light. I mean,
after his death.
After he died.
After he died.
Then he started.
But
and not long after he died, too. It wasn't immediate. It was more like in the 90s when Macca started to say,
it started with the Maneuvering Swan. It started with the Hunter Davies. What was that, 85?
84, I think.
84.
Well,
I think 84.
Yeah.
Well,
That's when it started.
But all that was a reaction to the slew of books that came out post John's murder that repositioned the Beatles as John being the best and the hero and
the only one.
And Paul being just handy second in command.
Soft second.
A soft second.
Yes.
So that was Paul's reaction. All that business of I was the counterculture one was really not to peg himself above John, but to reposition himself in the minds of people who thought John was the only guy.
Yeah.
And that's true. And yes, you're right, Mark.
And substantially succeeded in doing it as well. I mean, he kept on it long enough. The Miles book was obviously a big part of that. That was the whole intention of that, was to show him as the cool counterculture Beatle.
And that horrible shit he did with Ginsberg in '96. Remember that?
The Ballad of Skeletons.
And he's trying so hard. He's got the Epiphone. It's like, come on, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Make a great fucking rock record. You don't have to.
But he could do that too.
He could, but if he did it well, but it's not.
But return to your point, Howie, you're right. During Lennon's lifetime, McCartney took the high road and did not diss him. It was more subtle. He's way more subtle.
And not only that, the only reason we know about that, it's not 1956 anymore, you can't just show up with your guitar, is from John Lennon. Paul McCartney could have been like, hey, John, what about John? What about John? The greatest, anybody out there who collects bootlegs, the two best Audience 76 boots are obviously the LA Forum, but also May 9th in Toronto. And it's incredible. And this band is incredible. And right before he goes into Maybe I'm Amazed, somebody yells out, John Lennon! And nobody really does anything, and he doesn't acknowledge it. I don't know if he can even hear it, but that was a reality. That someone it wasn't a loaded thing. Like now, if you're at a Paul McCartney concert and you yell out John Lennon, it means 1,000 different things. And are you a dick? Or are you crazy? What does that mean? But it was just like this guy getting so excited, just going, John Lennon! They were still in the world. They were still young men. It could still happen again. They had never left people's consciousness. Like, why wouldn't you yell out John Lennon at a Paul McCartney concert? Why wouldn't you? It's like the most obvious thing in the world to do.
Or Jimmy McCulloch.
Joe English.
Yeah.
Joe English.
I love Joe English.
Hey, you want to talk about that band a little bit?
I want to talk about Mark seeing them in 75.
Yes,
that's
please.
A dream. Because that's essentially the same show, barring the new songs, but you had Go Now, you had Junior's Farm, which was red hot, and Little Woman Loves Sea Moon.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there was that medley dropped, Little Woman Love and Sea Moon.
That was, and Medicine Jar was at the end of the show.
Yeah.
But you're in tiny place. You're like in a 35-seat. You saw Odeon?
Hammersmith Odeon, where the Beatles had done their Christmas show and played in 65. Yeah, that was the difference because we didn't have any venues really like you had in America. We didn't have the big indoor sports arenas. So he was playing the same circuit as the Beatles had played. I think the tour opened at Southampton at the Gaumont Cinema and Hammersmith Odeon, and, he played at Liverpool Empire and all that kind of venue. So it was much more intimate. Theatres, cinemas really, but built with stages.
Right. After Band on the Run and Venus and Mars.
But we had only one indoor sports arena in the UK in those days, which was Wembley, and but it had lots of other things going on and you had to book it early. So the tour finished there the following October, 76. But when it began in 75, he's playing what he knew to be British venues, which was maybe 2,500 seats. So you're never far from the action. And I was in the fourth row.
Okay, all right.
And I hadn't seen Paul before, and I hadn't really been to a gig quite like that before. I was only 17. And it was one of the great nights of my life. I completely lost my voice singing along to everything. I was also right by the speaker bank, so I didn't hear anything for about a week afterwards. So I just had that ringing, which, is actually quite dangerous, but it's like a medal. You've been to a big gig. Yeah. But there they were, and the audience was absolutely in ecstasy the whole night.
And up against the stage.
Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah.
You really are right there. And they threw stuff out at the end, and I caught something. And then this girl behind me said, can I have that? And me being 17 said, yeah, sure. Yeah. And someone said to me, you should have kept that.
What was it, Frisbees?
Yeah, something like that.
And what were you making of the band? You were in love with this band, right?
I was, and I was a huge fan of Venus and Mars as well as Band on the Run, and this really was like a Venus and Mars tour at that point. They were doing Magneto, Entertaining Man, and Letting Go, and
listen to what
Venus
the man
and
said.
Mars rock show, and listen to what the man said.
Rock show, God, and Into Jet.
Yes,
Venus and Mars rock show, Jet. Let Me Roll It.
Yeah.
Come on.
It was a super strong start to that show. Before anything was said into the microphone, he had delivered those first few songs, and they were a really hot band. Jimmy was on my side of the stage. Paul was a little bit further away.
Standing in Lennon's spot.
Yes, that's right. I guess he was. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, when Wings started, all of a sudden, McCartney is stage, what would it be?
That would be stage left.
Stage left. Because he's the leader of the band.
Oh, boy.
That's an interesting thought. I've never considered that before. But he looked great. When you think of it, what was he? He was 75. He was 33.
Yeah.
That's all he was. 33 and a third, actually, at that point.
It's Jesus' age.
Right.
Elvis comeback, 33.
Okay.
God in heaven, you're standing right there watching him.
So it was great. It was I saw Paul lots after that, and in the end, I saw him in way smaller venues than that. I mean, I saw him in just clubs, in
91?
91, yeah, several times, and that, never got tired of seeing Paul live, but I don't need to do it anymore. But certainly did love going to see him in those days.
And still having it at the peak.
Yeah.
He
had a complete voice.
Yeah. He could do it all.
Yeah.
He could do it all.
Yeah, and it was that really was like, this is a Beatle.
Mm-hmm.
Because although we were all into Wings, and I had my Wings T-shirt on, it was really, why was I into Wings? Because it was Paul McCartney. And why was I into Paul McCartney? Because he'd been a Beatle.
Yeah. What do you think would have happened if you had made it to the 73 gig?
I probably would have loved that too, but it seems to have been a less overwhelming occasion than the 75-6 tour.
Yeah.
Although I'm told, I haven't really heard it yet, but this new box set of the Wings in Europe in 72 apparently essays them as a really incredible live band.
It's not true.
It's not true.
No.
Right.
They're awful.
That's what I've heard, but it was just like,
fucking band. Haven't you heard the tapes?
Well, I've heard the bootlegs. Yeah,
and then all this stuff has been like The Mess and Best Friend, all that. That's re-recorded. There's an acoustic guitar on Best Friend. Where the fuck did that come from, Linda? Come on.
Well, I only just judging by what I've read, someone said actually it turns out that they were much better than we realised live in 72.
That Henry McCulloch.
I do know the Boots, and never thought that they were that great.
No, they weren't.
And The Mess on the B-side of, was it My Love?
Yeah, which I love. I love that tune.
Yeah.
But that's,
Yes.
Abbey Road,
Yeah. But everything does come round because I recently actually did a trip to Campbelltown in Scotland to see the Mull of Kintyre for myself. And in the car on the way back, myself and my friend, we were playing Wildlife.
Yeah.
This was before any new remix or whatever has taken place. Just the standard version. And I found, we all know or think we know what Wildlife is or was. And I found myself enjoying almost all of it.
Yeah.
And thinking how catchy the songs were, and several of them really good.
Some people never know.
Some people never know.
I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I felt the same way. We recently, in the last couple of years, we looked at Ram and Wildlife, and I thought, wow, Wildlife is a lot better than
I never
remember.
shat on that. I never, I always
I
loved
passed over it as a kid. I think it was a little too stoned or something, but I do like it. I like a lot of the songs on there. Yeah.
But when he came back as someone, and I never asked you this, were you holding your breath for a reunion? Like it was always like I remember wishing at my birthday, I wish the Beatles, like closing my eyes and wishing I wish the Beatles get back together. And it's like I had the Beatles. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I got Beatles 6. That was the new Beatles album because I didn't have it before today.
Yeah.
So it was still like there was still so much more to get for me. So it was almost like going through the motion saying I want the Beatles, but they were still together.
Yeah, it was only in 75 or 76 that I completed getting everything they had done in the first place. So some of those albums were still new to me, and I wanted them to reunite, but I'm definitely convinced that they shouldn't have done it, and I'm glad they didn't do it.
Yeah,
it was impossible.
Yeah, it just would not have been right, and it's so much better the way that it ended, and they never reunited. I don't consider Free as a Bird and Real Love to be that, even though I did like what they were and was pleased that they did it.
Yeah.
But at the time, my biggest concern was that they might reunite and I wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And how on earth could I be there? Because it probably wouldn't be in England, because all the money was coming from America, like you said.
Yeah. I've had dreams like that, where you're hustling to get to the reunion.
Mark, let me ask you this, and you too, Howie. We've talked about 80, 81, and I have a strong feeling that sometime in the 80s, there would have been some kind of reunion. Any thoughts on that? Post-Double Fantasy release, 81.
He doesn't like to do that, though. He doesn't.
No.
You don't like the conjecture on that?
He gets spooked by
I
that.
I think it's really possible that had he not died, the four of them would have reconvened in some kind of way.
I think the two of them. George would have always been fucked with the idea.
I think he was plenty ready.
Ringo couldn't have really. It would have been McCartney drumming.
He
on
wouldn't.
those
He
tracks.
didn't necessarily had to drum, and they wouldn't have had to play live necessarily.
I don't think there's any way that John Lennon in the spotlight and Paul McCartney in the spotlight, public figures, could not. They knew it was destiny. These two, I can't go Beatles, but I will say these two, and I think that Lennon, to bring it back to '76, realized, look, my destiny, like when the whole world sees you and asks you about, like, it's not enough that both of them, everybody asks Paul about John, everybody asks John about Paul. There's no way that you can't, especially these guys who are so tied to the cosmos, are not realizing this is destiny.
But they did reunite. They reunited in John's living room, right?
Yeah, but they knew that they were cut out for bigger things than being friends and maybe harmonizing over an Everly Brother. They knew that at some point the stars will align. Something will force them back together. Whether it's the Beatles or not, something would have happened.
In preparing for this, I've re-listened to lots of interviews with them, from all four of them. Well, John, the New Year's Day '76 interview with Elliot Mintz. But then after that, Paul, George and Ringo with new product out, did quite a lot of promotional interviews. And it comes up in every single interview. And then, even if the broadcaster or journalist is apologizing for asking it, they're still asking it.
Yeah.
And God, it was dogging them all the time, that bloody question of when are you going to get back together. It must have annoyed the hell out of them.
But
just
don't
to
you
have
think
it every time.
also thrilled them a little?
No.
You don't
No,
think?
I think it was like I think it was just like that question again, because they could only ever answer for themselves, and quite often their answer was, well, I might, but it depends on how we all feel.
Yeah.
At the same time. So I think.
And then Ringo was the first one to say no. Ringo was the first one in '78 to be like, it'll never happen again. Right?
I don't know if was he the first to say never.
I think so.
Right, because
I think so.
Because they all blew hot and cold on, well, I might, but we'll have to see what the others say. But you never had a yes simultaneously.
No.
So that was the key thing. But I think it annoyed the hell out of them, because we're talking '76, but these questions began in '71.
Yeah.
So by '76, they've had 5 years of being asked that question every time, no matter whatever else they're there to talk about. They have to answer that question, for which there was no answer, because they could only speak for themselves.
Yeah. But '76, I mean, it was just something about it. I mean, '75, McCartney is the only one bothering the charts there, and not even. I mean, listen what the man said was a top 10. No, not in England it wasn't. It wasn't number one in England.
No.
In the U.S., though.
In U.S., but he's the only... Rock and roll isn't doing anything.
Let me think. I think I always used to remember this fact. Didn't Paul not have a British number one until Ebony and Ivory?
I think so.
No, Mull of Kintyre, until Mull of Kintyre,
Mull.
77, of course, yeah. But I don't think he'd had one before then.
Yeah, they were top 10s.
Silly Love Songs only made number 2 in Britain. Held off the top by a really stupid record by the Wurzels.
Yeah.
Which you won't know.
No,
but
I read it, though.
It was Melanie's Brand New Key turned into an English West Country novelty song called I've Got a Brand New Combine Harvester. Wow. Just took off and kept Silly Love Songs off number 1. Yeah, that's England for you. Our charts
England,
were always like that.
I'm speechless, Mark.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it was because
I thought the Brits were cooler than America.
You know what it was. You know what it was with Britain, if I may say so, is that
let me decide afterwards whether
As
you
if you
may
really
or not.
know how.
Because after '70, it went glam and it went pop and it went younger. And yes, you had the old Grey Whistle Test crowd and you had the people, you had the prog people and everything, but the juice of the top 40 was glam and new.
Glam and pop.
Yeah, glam and pop. And we went singer-songwriter, which had a toehold in Beatles. It all comes from Beatles.
Yeah.
So it was like the Beatles, an extension. CSN, James Taylor, those are extensions. Even Joni, you can trace back to yesterday.
There's a divergence in Britain in those days between the album chart and the singles chart. And the album artists didn't really want anything to do with the singles market, and vice versa. The singles market didn't really impact on the album chart. Some crossover, of course, Bowie and so on. But generally speaking, there was the pop singles scene in the 70s in the UK was frivolous until punk and new wave.
Yeah.
So that's why he was held off number one by just a stupid record.
So 75, what were you hearing on the album-oriented radio from Venus and Mars?
Well, we didn't really have album-oriented radio. I mean, we didn't have any of your diversity in radio either. We still had principally, on a national basis, one radio station. And we were just beginning a rollout of commercial local radio stations that were all pretty much pop music driven, but played chart. They played chart singles.
Wow.
So we didn't really have, apart from the evenings on Radio 1, which became more mature and culminating with John Peel, who was playing the underground stuff, there wasn't really a place for album rock to be played.
God, that's so crazy. Like when you read Walgren, when you would see, and it would be like, once again, airplay was at saturation level, heavy to saturation level for nearly every cut. I can't imagine living in a world without that.
Yeah, no, you had to buy the record to hear it. So that's how it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not, I don't suppose it's massively different now, but I'm not really part of that anymore.
I mean, in 75, 76, you were hearing Jet, Band on the Run, My Love just as much as a modern hit.
Right.
Like literally, you would hear Live and Let Die,
the
summer 76, 3 times a day.
Yeah, you see,
It felt like, right?
There was another reason, another key shift actually, is the fact that in Britain, if you were a music connoisseur, you weren't into Wings.
Yeah.
It was as simple as that, because Wings were pop.
Yeah.
Or so it was perceived.
And soft.
Yeah.
And silly love songs.
So you were into your Pink Floyd and
Led Zeppelin and David Bowie
and Genesis
and
and Roxy Music and
right.
and so on, but you weren't
Queen.
into Wings. Wings was My Love. Wings was Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Yeah.
Things like that. So even though he could do a rock track like Jet, for example, it wouldn't be considered by
Junior's Farm wasn't considered.
Junior's Farm was laughed at for being trite in
Wow.
Britain. Yeah, yeah.
And when you saw that on Top of the Pops, were you going nuts?
I always like to see Paul on television, but I was aware of I was still at school when that came out, and my whole class were laughing at it, so it was hard to like it.
Were they laughing at Jet?
No, Jet was liked more. Band on the Run was well appreciated generally, as was the Ringo album. I remember that. That was the only time Ringo was ever cool in Britain, was that album for a brief while.
Yeah, for 6 minutes. Yeah, his best album.
And Lennon, Never Again After Imagine?
Number 9 Dream and Whatever Gets You Through the Night were liked.
Yeah.
But the albums weren't selling, you know.
Well, it really was. It was the Neville Stannard book and the Walgren. Because, we were talking at dinner, we were talking about Schaffner and Beatles Forever and the American take on this. And that was the first time I ever saw those chart placings.
Yeah.
And I was shocked, like not charting, like songs not, like George having songs that didn't even chart.
George had several singles that didn't even break the top 50.
I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
But there was no promotion, right?
Well, there wasn't a lot because he was busy or he wasn't in the country, and to promote, you've really got to go out there and do TV shows or radio, and no, I mean, they were busy guys.
They would put out ads. That would be it, right?
Yeah, there would be an ad in the paper.
Yeah.
And it would get some radio airplay because that was EMI's job, was to ensure that they got airplay, but it just went into rotation with other things, and if it didn't go up the charts quickly, it was gone.
Yeah.
It was gone.
Yeah.
Paul also had records that didn't chart very well, even in that period. Letting Go, I think, maybe.
Yeah, Venus and Mars
40-something
rocked 39. It got to 39 in America, but Venus and Mars Rock Show, which they chopped up into a mess, got to 12. I don't ever remember hearing it. Do you ever remember hearing that?
No.
12.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Listen to what the man said is also a major American moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant cut right there with his best stuff.
It is. Undoubtedly.
And
It's a
then
beautiful record.
I always tell Bard this. I'm always like, on Wings Over America, listen to My Love, which is incredible, straight into listen to what the man said. And this guy is playing 2 recent back-to-back number one hits, and each one a different genre, and it's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that it even happened.
And that he's displaying it so generously. And we could use that to talk about the greatness of that show. This show documented so beautifully in Rock Show, the film, and on the 3-record set, which is an amazing album.
It's my favorite.
I know it is, and I can't wait.
Every album.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear you talk about it. That show, may I dare I say, which I didn't get to see. I mean, I saw the film. I saw the film in '79 in the theater.
80.
Was it 80?
Yeah,
okay.
80. The TV one was on in 79.
I remember seeing something in '79, and then I guess in the theater it was 80, which was great. What a band!
Wasn't it playing in New York? Wasn't it like Rock
When
Show
Lennon-
was playing
well,
the night that Lennon
Yeah,
was,
that's when
was
he saw it.
murdered.
He saw it. You saw it in November '80, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess
November.
so. Yeah, and I think that's the one time in Paul McCartney's career where his live show achieved art.
Yeah.
The level of art instead of entertainment and or commerce and or whatever you want to call it.
And he was a musician first.
Yeah, where it's all clicking.
Yeah.
He is the protein musician, band leader, vocalist with his best band.
Yeah.
Joe English,
Yeah.
Jimmy, even Denny's great. That horn section, that is magic. That is, it was never the same after that.
And it's also the greatest. I love Ringo. Joe English is the greatest drummer he ever made music with. The greatest. And this guy could bounce and swing. I mean,
and
he
groove.
really was something
Very
special.
sensitive to the man.
And he was also a lefty too. He's playing, open-fisted. It's called.
And joy, great joy.
Yeah.
You can feel the joy in the communication.
And every performance is different because he's feeling it different. I mean, McCartney's popping off these bass lines and he's grooving on it. And then you have Jimmy, who's, this kid was really keeping it together. This kid was up there with Townsend and Clapton and Frampton. I mean, he had
he's tearing.
A magnificent musician in that guy. But the thing is, he had the songs, he had the voice, and he came at the perfect time.
Yeah.
If he had come any earlier, it wouldn't have worked. And he came and he took all the Beatles love. And not only that, don't forget, he's touring that summer on 3 major hits, because it got to Get You Into My Life, which was played nonstop. Nonstop.
Yeah. Top 10 hit again. Amazing. 10 years later.
Yeah, because it was on Rock and Roll Music, wasn't it? And got
yeah.
pulled as a single, and was a huge hit in America, but not so much in the UK.
It was huge. It was
the Earth, Wind and Fire version was bigger, I think, in Britain.
Yeah,
but that was good. That was very good.
I agree.
A great live version of Chicago. Did you ever hear Chicago's version?
No. Yep.
From that time,
I didn't know.
Phenomenal.
Peter Cetera, unbelievable.
And they also did Magical Mystery Tour, which was fucking amazing.
But they're killing Gotta Get You in My Life.
Yeah.
That tour, that show.
Yeah, the thing about it being in '76 as well, because it was your bicentennial, and for an Englishman to be, the hottest act in America that year, but with a show that was like celebrating. It was a Beatles celebration.
Yeah.
Only 4 Beatles songs, but it was a Beatle going out to all these cities again. Back in wherever that tour went, Atlanta and Denver and. Toronto and Los Angeles, New York, and all the cities that it played, Fort Worth. It was an incredible thing for a Beatle to be out there being number 1 again.
What was strange about it, and when you talk about it's like you almost forget about those September, October, and he did Venice.
Zagreb, he went behind the Iron Curtain.
That's right. That's right. He never did a second leg. Like Floyd would do a second leg.
Yeah.
There were secondary markets that were still huge. He didn't play Florida. Now when people play Florida, they play 8 cities in Florida because that's where the baby boomers live now.
Right.
But they play Tampa,
Yeah.
He did Georgia, but he didn't do either of the Carolinas. He didn't do Kentucky. He didn't do the Midwest, really. He didn't do the Dakotas. He didn't do Iowa, He closed 90 in Ames, Iowa in a stadium. Did the Pacific Northwest, but one show. He never came back. He should have come back in July or August or September, and then he should have closed the year out with Christmas shows in the UK, which is what he does now. Now he does a few Christmas.
But we're speaking of touring from now 40 years ago, right? 42 years ago, 43 years ago.
But still, I mean, even he would have made so much money. Like, I mean, he made a killing, but it wasn't a back-breaking tour. It was 7 weeks on the road or whatever it was.
With a lot of young kids and a wife and a life and a...
It was as easy as it got, though. You know what I'm saying? It was as easy as Led Zeppelin. So it wasn't a lot of station wagons, and he didn't have to lift anything. And it's as cozy and delicious as it gets, McCartney 76. So that it stopped was shocking. And this is something, we'll get into this, but he stops, he takes a break. That's when the Buddy Holly week happens, and he records an album in the summer. After America, he goes and he does all of these demos. Now, you would listen to the demos. Tell me what you thought. These are the Rude Studio demos. He goes back to Scotland, as he did every summer, and he would record a slew of stoner, one-man, basically the middle ground between the McCartney albums.
Yeah, it's like early McCartney too, isn't it?
Yes.
Like prototype McCartney too. He's kind of noodling around, isn't he? I mean, how many of those would you consider to be real songs?
None.
Yeah. So they're sitting down and exploring where ideas might go. So I have listened to them, but they didn't make a huge impact on me. One of them is like an embryonic Old Siam Sir, which I never had any time for, even when it was finished. So I don't have a lot to say about them, to be honest. To you, could you say a lot about those?
What I think of it is the prototype for McCartney 2. And he did it each summer. He would do more and more, and they started to become more songs. Like Boyle Crisis comes from there, and Cage has its origins there, and Waterspout came from that eventually. 75, the first Rude product that we have was an Ubu Jubu of him and the girls doing an early Ue Le Sole from 75.
Amazing it was around that long.
And so 76 happens, but those 76 sessions morph into the Holidays album. And Holidays is not important, but it is an album that he made in 76.
Yeah.
So...
And a relatively pleasant one.
Yeah. It's like a weekend with wings.
And it shows Denny in a fairly... It's all Buddy Holly songs, right?
Yes.
Which he had just bought the publishing.
And we can touch on that because that's a major move forward for the man and his business and his acumen.
Well, he becomes a his life becomes more multi-millionaire-esque after 76. Correct? Wouldn't you say?
It would seem so, because he's free of the others now and pocketing whatever actually is genuinely his. And he's got these other assets now in the publishing catalogues, which, I mean, he's got Chorus Line and Annie and Grease and
Buddy Holly.
And he's got his own copyrights as well now. So, and he's out there touring, and his record sales are so much greater than the other Beatles, ex-Beatles.
Yeah, Speed of Sound's a number one record in America.
And Venus and Mars was the first one that was all his. Venus and Mars, those two number one albums.
Too.
Yeah.
He's sitting on the top of the world.
Yeah, and he owns his masters now. Yeah, and he's got his masters back to 1970 as part of the New Deal.
And when does the New Deal exactly happen?
70. It's not due until January 76, but he signed it in 75. And that's the one we touched on last time.
That's right.
Yeah, with
the betrayal.
The override, yes. So the last 5 years of John Lennon's life, he didn't know about that.
Well, let me ask you this. Did they know that he had gotten his masters back?
Yes, I think so, because if they bother, it was probably told to them, but if you look at in the small print of the records as they were being reissued,
McCartney
you would see
Productions.
it. Yeah.
But that was their product too. All Things Must Pass is Apple. It's an Apple asset.
No, it's an EMI asset.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, no, Apple didn't have any Beatle assets.
Yeah, that's
apart
right,
From,
that's right,
Not
that's
in
right.
recording terms, apart from certain little tracks here and there.
But it was part of their deal.
Yeah,
It was part of the
67
EMI, the
deal.
67 deal.
Yeah.
God.
So he's all hot with music publishing. He's got the Buddy Holly catalog, so they do a week at the Root Studio Farm, and Denny sings most of that album.
Yeah.
doesn't he?
Yeah, he gives it to. Well,
And
Denny,
he
Denny
does
was
a nice
gonna-
job of it.
Yeah, Denny was going to have someone else do it, and then Denny told me someone else was going to do it. I forget who. And
Well,
then-
who else but Denny should do that?
No, it was going to be a country producer. It was going to be a name producer that McCartney, or I think it was the way Denny. Although who the fuck knows what Denny? You know, Denny was going to do these Buddy songs and use an outside producer, and it fell through. And McCartney said, "No, I'll do the tracks, and you'll sing over them."
And it was an MPL product.
Yes.
It was actually like MPL made that record.
Yes.
So Denny didn't own it, but
Yeah,
he was. And probably in terms of royalties, didn't earn very much because it really didn't sell.
No, and
Why
there was
would it sell?
It was the worst promo too. You remember that Moonbeams
Yes,
promo?
yes.
And it's like literally like Denny on the cover of London Town, but just standing outside singing for no reason. A song that will never chart anywhere. You know?
And why should it?
Yeah. But it's good. There's a couple of really nice things on there.
Yeah, there are some nice moments. They sing well. They're having a good time, and there it
Yeah.
is. It's an asterisk. It's a footnote somewhere
Yeah.
in the story.
He's got
Yes.
so many asterisks.
He does.
You know?
He deserves them because
Yeah.
he did Silly Love Songs.
Paul,
Yeah.
I can't think of an artist who has anything like as many asterisks or footnotes as Paul McCartney.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
he's been in every pie
Yeah.
you can possibly imagine, from huge ones to tiny ones, and ones we don't even know about yet.
But like Zoo Gang. Like doing a deal with Zoo Gang.
Yeah.
You know, Proud Mum with Mother's Pride.
Mother's
like,
Pride Bread. Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like, that this guy was like, it was like Jesus.
Well, it was a challenge for him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To write a commercial in 30 seconds. you know,
Yeah.
write
And that's a great song. That's a beautiful song. I love that. As far as speed of sound, here it was, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing it. And Let 'Em In was so bad. I mean, Let 'Em In was number one, I think, Cashbox. Cashbox, it was number one. That did nothing there.
Number 2 in the UK, Let 'Em In, behind Elton John and Kiki D's Don't Go Breaking My Heart.
was the
Let 'Em
best,
In
yeah.
went to number 2 in
It
the
did.
UK.
So Let 'Em In and Silly Love Songs both made 2.
Wow.
Which was, considering he hadn't yet had a British number 1, must have been pretty frustrating for him.
Wow.
Because he definitely wanted one, as you would expect.
As he still wants.
Hey, he wanted
Sure.
one with My Brave Face too, didn't
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Indeed.
you don't put out a record to make number 2, do you? You want number 1, and it's really important to him that he got it. But he was frustrated on both occasions in '76.
You know, Creedence, I think, has the record for a band that has the most number 2 singles. Is that true?
I think so.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that's
It
what.
must be super
he? And no,
frustrating.
no number ones for CCR.
None.
Yeah, but they had 4 or 5 number 2 songs.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Number 2's not bad. Twice in a row, pretty good. He's having a good time, and he's killing it in America. On, may I say, a pretty subpar album.
Yeah.
All in all,
A great EP.
Wings at the Speed
Yeah.
of Sound.
Yeah.
Oh, is that your view on it? That
Yeah,
it's-
I don't think it's a very good record. All in all, I think there's a Twin Peaks. I think Silly Love Songs and Let 'Em In are brilliant. McCartney, A+. Let 'Em In's a little cheeky, but
It's there.
But
It's
I love
there.
it.
It's there.
It's
It's
such
there.
a clever
It's so
idea
clever.
to write
Yeah.
a song just based on who's ringing your doorbell.
do me a favor. I mean, nobody does that better than this guy. Do me a favor.
And it's a voice you never heard him do before.
Yet another new voice. The fabulous piano that Billy Joel would co-opt 2 years later with My Life. Dum, dum, dum. Fabulous chord work. Fabulous arrangement. Tremendous drumming. The flutes. That's the bicentennial anthem.
Yes.
Like whether he was
Yes.
planning on it or not, that thing took over the bicentennial of the United States of
Yeah.
America.
Flutes and marching
and the
drums.
marching
Yeah.
snare drum. It
Yeah.
had to have been.
Well, you
it
know,
had
the
to have
thing
been
that's-
planned.
That's
That's-
so clever because it was recorded in '75.
It
wasn't
was. It was. And he was, if you listen on those Trevor tapes where they're workshopping the show in September 70 before that, or August 75, he's running through Let 'Em In. It's done. And that demo is 75. But that album, half of that album, the good shit on that album, was fit in lieu of the Japanese dates that were supposed to happen in late 75.
Yeah.
So he just went in and did, that's why it's Zooropa, That's why it's not,
Not totally
but
all the way.
What would he have done, though? I mean, he's back on the road in March 76. So what would he have done? Just put out a single for the U.S. tour?
No, you need a record.
He
knew you needed a record, and the tour began as a Venus and Mars tour, but it would have been in year 2 by 76, so he did need another one.
You need another one. And it blew up. And yes, I thought it was a more visual album than anything because the visual of Speed of Sound is powerful. It's a great cover.
I don't know if it's a great cover, but it's powerful. You remember it.
I think it's I say great because it's iconic and it is eye-catching and you remember it. It was pretty eye-catching.
I asked Aubrey Powell about it. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. I was like, that's the worst thing you guys ever did. And he was like, yeah, but it was he really wanted that. And what am I going to say?
It's pretty memorable.
Yeah, it looked like the outside of Hammersmith Odeon, really.
Yeah, but for Americans, that's like,
how would you, we wouldn't know that. I just thought it was kind of futuristic and interesting, and then you flip it over and you see their 5 morphed faces across the thing, which I thought was super cool too.
Yeah.
And the commercial was cool because you saw it moving, their faces morphing.
The video, it's the Silly Love Songs video.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All in all, the record, I'm going to give it a B. Although,
I have on tape, I have Mark singing San Ferry Ann.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Do you?
We should put it. We'll
were
put it
there,
right
were
in.
you?
We'll put it at the end of
I
this.
thought it was just
put it at the end.
Absolutely. It's great.
Fantastic.
Now, why does that album not work so well for you then?
For me, it's a half good record and a half not good record. And I also think that the idea of, let's make it a band record. Let's make it a band record.
Yeah.
And let's let Jimmy and Linda and Denny sing. It's like, come on.
And Joe.
Now, Joe English, amazingly enough, I like his Must Do Something About
His
It.
is better.
I think he does it better than the Paul demo,
Yeah.
although the Paul demo isn't totally there. And if had Paul...
It's a guide vocal.
It's a guide vocal
Yeah.
demo.
Yeah.
Had he applied himself, it would have been fine. I think that's a very nice song. Must Do Something About
But
It.
he's already edging into London town area.
Yeah.
That flaccid.
And it's soft and flabby.
Yeah.
A lot of that same acoustic guitar strumming. It's a
Yeah.
bit tedious. The musical invention that percolates through Let 'Em In and Silly Love Songs.
And Warm and Beautiful, too, which is actually a very fine cut that I would like to discuss briefly. That song, to me, feels like the end, perhaps, of the Beatle-McCartney mojo for the 70s. Sure, he gets it again on With a Little Luck, gets it again on parts of Back to the Egg, parts of McCartney 2, and then obviously Tug of War. But the Warm and Beautiful melody, the effortlessness of it, the beauty of it, the purity. A love so warm and beautiful, da 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 da, is falling. I mean, that's McCartney. That's a deep album cut that stands up. That's what he did all the time with the Beatles. It was less and less with Wings, where that kind of quality is achieved. And as far as the mojo that you hear on Silly Love Songs, Let 'Em In, and Warm and Beautiful,
is not really present for me on the rest of the record.
Beware My Love, though.
Beware My Love's hot.
Yeah.
Although it's also a little weird.
But I got to say, my favorite, besides the 2 singles, that I still listen to.
You like She's My Baby.
What a motherfucker. And he's on that bass, and he's, come on, the 3 of them, come on, that's tasty shit. That's great shit. You can't tell me it's not.
I don't think it's a great song.
I fucking love it.
I don't think it's a great song.
I like it as a song, but and I liked it on the album. But when the reissue came out and he included the demo, I thought the demo was much better, and that somehow it was lost a little bit in the production of it.
He should have given that to Ringo for 76. That should have been, instead of that piece of shit, Pure Gold, which is garbage.
Yeah.
Now, if you heard anything that Pure Gold, because I had read this, I don't know whether it was Madinger who said it, that Pure Gold was given to him for Goodnight Vienna and passed over.
I don't know anything about it. I'm not saying that isn't right. I just don't. I have no knowledge.
Pure Gold.
Yeah.
Not god awful, but not
Well,
great.
it's like
it's not 6 o'clock.
No, 6 o'clock. o'clock. When you heard 6 o'clock, did your mind explode?
I'm the Greatest was my favorite track on that album by far. And 6 o'clock I thought was good, but I didn't blow my mind, no.
If it had been a McCartney vocal?
Maybe, but I wasn't that mad on the song. I think the best tracks on the Ringo album are Photograph
and I'm the
You
Greatest.
and Me, Babe, and I'm the Greatest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Did you, when you heard Photograph, were you saying this is Beatles?
No, I'm the Greatest was the one that really got me because of George's guitar on it, and it's such a great song.
Yeah.
It's such obviously a Lennon song, but sung perfectly by Ringo. So, and that was the one that we knew had three of them on.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the one.
To get into the 76 show, and I've written about this before, you know, McCartney's coming back, and what you got to understand is he's got to do the McCartney show, but he can't do the Beatles. He only does 5 songs total that are Beatles songs. Now think about that now. Imagine that if he only did, it was 5 McCartney-Lennon songs. And
that was the year it happened, wasn't it? 76. Yeah.
But he's got to cover all of the touchstones of his act. So what he does, he's so brilliant. This guy was so brilliant and zapped. He thinks about this in 74, 75. And this is, you look at this. He's got to have the Oh Darling Screamer. So he writes, Call Me Back Again. He needs to have Honey Pie When I'm 64. Your mother should know. So he writes, You Gave Me the Answer. He comes up with these. He needs a Helter Skelter. He writes, Beware My Love. He rewrites his catalog. He reinvents it for the show. There are certain things that have to stay. Like Blackbird has to be Blackbird. Yesterday has to be Yesterday. But if you look in the notes, 476, when he's writing it down, he planned it as a double album. He was originally thinking of doing an acoustic Tomorrow into Yesterday, which is fascinating.
Right.
Fascinating. But what he did was he took these elements, like I can't do Oh Darling because it's not relevant. Even Junior's Farm 1 could argue, I need to get back. He did this in a way that was so subliminal that most people don't even think of that. Oh, well, but he did. And he made the perfect show. These are all, and not only that, the spine of the show are these hits, these singles, these incredible diamonds.
Juggernauts.
You know, it's like, boom, within 10 minutes you have Jet. And then 15 minutes from then you have Maybe I'm Amazed. And then it's the Beatles piano songs. It's boom, boom, boom.
My Love. Listen to what the man said. Band on the Run.
And then it's 2.
Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And the thing is, you know, it's also, he ends that piano set. He tops and tails the first piano set with solo piano classics. It's Maybe I'm Amazed and Live and Let Die. He could have opened it with Long and Winding Road and closed it with Lady Madonna, but he didn't. He bookends it with his gold.
Brilliant programming.
Yeah.
And very premeditated and purposeful in the programming.
I'd never considered that before, that he's actually writing songs to replace those that he feels he can't sing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But will have the same effect.
Yeah, because he can.
I love what you're saying. It's a great observation about this show and how he designed it.
And the thing, I mean, when you think about this show, and you think about a McCartney show, he doesn't do Let It Be or Hey Jude. Even in 79, he didn't do Hey Jude. It was rehearsed.
Can you? It's amazing.
But imagine this guy doing a show.
He held those. He held them back. He held those back for 20 years.
That's what made the 89-90 tour so special because, there's all these other songs that he hasn't done live yet. Like Hey Jude.
Crazy.
And Pepper. I mean, can't put him.
And the end. All the the whole Abbey Road. I think Wings Over America is the top of the mountain.
I want to tell
agree
you
with
something.
you.
I would call myself in sick from school. My parents would go to work. I would call myself in sick. I would pretend to be my father. And I would spend all day smoking pot and laying on my bed and just blasting that on headphones. And I'll tell you something. I learned more from those 4 sides than in all 4 years of high school. That was my education. And I'll tell you, it taught me everything I know. Everything I know because of the Beatles. Everything I know about fucking geography, about religion, everything. I learned nothing in high school. Mark, go.
What could you possibly say?
I want to know
after
why you didn't play the other 2 sides of Wings Over America, because my copy had 6 sides. You only played
right.
4. Yeah, you should have listened to the other 2.
Yeah, right.
You were just too stoned to see the other disc in the set. Yeah. I thought that was a fantastic live album, and it absolutely, because I was so crazy about Wings and that tour in particular, and we hadn't yet seen any of the footage. So to relive it, you had to play Wings Over America. And I remember it cost me £5.15. It was a triple. It was really expensive.
Yeah.
But I got it on day 1, and I took it around to a friend of mine's house who had a good stereo system, Ron, and played the whole thing. He just accepted that I was going to be stealing 2 hours of his time to play this triple album. But it was exactly the show that I'd seen 4 times. Or twice, because it had those later tracks on it. And it was everything that I wanted it to be. Yeah. It was somewhat disappointing when I was working at Abbey Road in '87 to be told by a number of the engineers that quite a lot of it had been touched up in the studio in Abbey Road in the dying weeks of '76 before the album was rushed into production.
What Denny told me?
That's typical stuff. Of course.
I asked Denny, I said, how much was it? And
I don't have a problem with that.
And Denny said, he goes, the only thing, I was like, rumor has it that you and Linda had to redo all your vocals. He goes, that's not true. He goes, I had to redo all of my guitar because I was out of tune. And every time I sang, I would either stop playing or whatever.
Right.
So he said, and I'm listening to that Toronto thing. It's spot on.
Right.
It's spot on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, wow.
Yes.
It's so tight.
Yeah.
Rotogravure, I want to ask you. To me, that was kindergarten. I got that. I went with my grandfather. We went to Jimmy's Music World in the Bronx. He would always do this. He would grab 2 Beatles albums and hold them both up, and I had to pick one.
Right. What was the other one?
Mind Games.
Right.
And I was terrified by this crying Yoko Mountain, and I said, I'll take him.
Right.
And I fell in love with that album. Like, that was, I just have memories of waking up, putting it on, getting dressed for kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I loved every bit of it.
Every bit of Rotogravure.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, it's my all-time favorite Ringo album. Over Ringo.
Right.
Over Ringo.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
Yeah,
personally.
neither does Bard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I got it new in '76. I remember being disappointed that it didn't have the magnifying glass he had been talking about.
Yeah.
It was meant to come with a magnifying glass.
Mine didn't either.
No, so I think it was maybe promotional copies only. But as a record, I wasn't a sophisticated listener of records in those days. Well, maybe I still am not, but I did like Ringo very much. I really love Ringo as an album, and I did like Goodnight Vienna a lot, although I didn't think it was as good as Ringo. And this, to me, was very much third division.
You think that Rotogravure is worse than Goodnight Vienna?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I always felt much better about Goodnight Vienna. I thought the songs on it were stronger, and I liked the production of it, and I liked the fact that John was on it and George was on it. George isn't on it, is he? No. But Nielsen's on it.
George is fucking his wife. Wow.
It's true. And Elton is on it.
Yeah. Snookeroo was great.
So I knew that Goodnight Vienna was secondary to Ringo, but to me this was another step down, not up.
And
I haven't changed my mind on that.
And did it stay on your turntable?
Not for long. Not for long. I used to enjoy looking at the cover more than I enjoyed playing the record.
Yeah.
But there were certain tracks on it, like Dose of Rock and Roll was okay and Hey Baby.
And how did you feel about Cookin'?
I liked it at the time, but it doesn't have a lot going for it, really. I remember I used to look as best I could at the tiny picture of John on the sleeve, where there's got all those little pictures, and there's one I think he's eating with Chinese food, with chopsticks. And you know, there weren't many pictures of John in '76 that you could see. Yeah. So that was I studied it to see that, but and the track was okay, but it's not a great track. It's not I'm the Greatest, is it?
And
it's
Pure Gold,
Vienna.
you thought was shit?
I didn't think it was shit, but it just didn't. It wasn't anything in particular. And also the Harrison song on there.
Now we were talking about this alleged lawsuit. They talk about it in the Aspel and Company appearance in '88, and everybody thought it was a joke when he goes, he was going. But
Ringo says George was going to sue me at one point, or did sue me. I think he says. And what did that mean? Yeah, and we didn't know at the time, as you said, we thought it was a joke.
And what I've heard was that he wasn't happy. He didn't get final say over the mix of this song.
Yeah.
Now, this song is a real sleeper in the catalog. I've always loved it. Harrison did it in, I don't know if it was actually the All Things Must Pass sessions or whether it was the Ronnie sessions in February '71. But this song is basically, if you could imagine, an amalgam of Something and While My Guitar.
Yeah.
As a love ballad, but it really could have been a Shirley Bassey or a Streisand kind of thing. And Ringo did it, and it was the Harrison contribution to the album. But we don't know whether or not, if you could find any type of filings about that.
I would love to, but I haven't found anything yet.
Yeah.
Because it didn't actually come to an action. I don't think it was just a threat of one. So what is it we have to surmise? What is it that George may have been so upset about? It can only be the way it was done. Yeah,
that it apes. It's a fake Harrison track.
I don't want you to put it out like that.
Yeah,
and it did
an imitation, because that Lon Von Eaton is imitating Harrison.
Yeah. That song was I think he was going to give it to Shirley Bassey, and he was also Cilla Black's name was attached to that song for a while, but I don't know that she ever recorded it.
And it was originally called Whenever, which is a better title.
Right.
It's more,
Yeah.
I have something to say about Ringo. Is that right? Is that okay?
Yeah. Sure.
Can I give you my 2.5 cents on
Rotogravure? Bard hates it.
And Ringo, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. That's not accurate.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I don't, and I agree with Mark that I don't think it's as good a record as the previous two records, which I think are his two best records. I think Ringo's his best album, and I think the Goodnight Vienna, the follow-up, is quite good. I think that the thing about Ringo Starr, for me as a music listener and lover and a Beatle fanatic my whole life, is that I like Ringo Starr every 14th song. And that's it. Because I don't think, God love him, but I don't think Ringo Starr has a voice or a persona or an artistic presence that can sustain a 45-minute experience for me. And Rotogravure is the album where that really starts to happen for me. I make it all the way through Ringo, and I made it all the way through Vienna. I really like that Vienna record, and I've said it before. But
you like that, the Roger
I did.
Miller
I really
song.
liked the Roger Miller song. I don't know why.
Wives.
There was something about it that appealed to me. I don't know.
And really emotional song for Ringo to record at that time when his marriage was breaking up.
Yeah. Well, there's something about it that moved me. And I think Ringo Starr is a competent musician, vocalist, entertainer. In fact, I think he's a fine entertainer. I think that's the thing he really does, maybe perhaps the best of all his skills. And when he sings, there is a good feeling. You can feel the man's heart and love. He's a good
when he nails it.
When he's doing good work and he's not completely polluted out of his mind or whatever. Yeah. But when he's in front of the mic and doing it and into it and meaning it, I get a good feeling. I feel that it's well-intentioned. He means well for the people. I think that Hey Baby is really nice. I like that track. And Cooking, I don't think is a great song. No. I think it misses the mark. I think it's John is not he's on fumes there writing that stuff. And we'll get to the 76 Lennon demos. I think Ringo does a competent job. I think the record sounds good. It's played well. But it loses me by the Mexican tune.
Which I loved.
So you love that.
I loved it.
There's something about it. I just find it's just so, oh gosh, now we're at the tiki bar.
I mean, he's going strong with Poncia. He and Poncia have a partnership, and they're creating music, and it's authentic. Like, it's not like he's doing, ooh-wee, where it's just shit, where it's just a rewrite of whatever. But I felt like they were starting to get something going. I thought Crying was a good country song.
Crying was pretty good.
As a good country song.
I don't think Pure Gold is shit, by the way. I think it's okay. It's a pastiche, like a 50s pastiche.
But it's
which
with
is
an
a little
ARP.
weird.
He's got an ARP going on there, and it's like, so it's 70s, and is it a stroll?
Is it 50s? Is
Who's
it
doing
70s?
a stroll? But what I think the big missed opportunity of that album is using a marimba on this Clapton tune, which could have been an FM hit. That could have had legs if it was a rock tune. That was the thing about this guy, is that he was too pop for rock, he was too rock for pop, and he was also old. You know, you don't realize, like, even then, People Magazine, Time Magazine, they were talking about McCartney. He's old. Who else had done it at 30? You know, like Chuck Berry wasn't doing it at 34. It was like he was on some circuit. These were the first ones, them and Jagger, the first ones. Like, you're still doing
Dylan.
it. Yeah, and Dylan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're asked that question all the time. Why are you still doing this? And when are you going to retire?
Yeah.
And they're in their mid-30s.
Right?
And it drives me mad. People to this day, well, you know, they got a few precious moments with Paul McCartney and a microphone, and they ask him that question. Why are you still doing it? So why are you still asking that question?
Yeah.
Is more to the point. But yeah, they were considered old because there hadn't been old rock stars yet. Okay, I mean they've grown old and pushed that line all the way back with them, so that now we do accept 70-year-old rock stars, or at least 70-year-old guys up on stage. But it was completely new territory when they were doing it in their 30s.
It's so weird when you think about Ringo in 76. He's only
36.
He's 36. Elton was 45. Elton is born in 45?
47, Elton.
47.
Born in 1947.
He's 47. He's the same as Barry. So he's almost another generation from Elton, you know?
Ringo?
Yeah.
Absolutely. 7 years is a
7
generation.
years.
Yes. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
God.
Yeah.
God.
And I'm saying, I'm just going to tell you, you know, I mean, I love the Beatles. And that's why I love Ringo Starr, not the other way around. If Ringo Starr had not been in the Beatles, I would never listen to Ringo Starr. Ever.
Yeah.
You know, I don't listen to Don't Pass Me By too much.
Yeah.
The best of Ringo Starr is With a Little Help from My Friends. And the reason is because his two buddies, the two greatest songwriters in history, came together and wrote the perfect vehicle for him.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's the whole thing. He's good. Put him behind the kit, playing drums for these really great guys. And being the buddy and the heartbeat and the love, the friend. He's a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Ringo's a friend with a charming non-voice.
Yeah. One song an album.
Give me one an album. What goes on is more than enough.
Yeah.
Okay? That's how I feel.
And that is the problem with Rotogravure, because Ringo and slightly to a lesser extent Goodnight Vienna carried it because there was so much personality in the tracks and the variety in the music and the production of it by Richard Perry.
And a couple of big hits.
Yes.
And great songs.
That's right. Yeah.
A couple of big hits.
But it wasn't. But even with a good cast of support characters, you didn't really with Rotogravure. I didn't. You obviously felt differently, but I didn't necessarily want to listen to track after track after track after track after track of that.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to Ringo, but it was just like a formula was stretched by this point.
Yeah.
I like what you said, Howie, many times when we talk, that I think he should just be doing Lennon and McCartney songs.
He should. The whole show should be
And
Beatles.
making records. If you're going to make another record, if you're going to make another Ringo Starr record, why don't you just do 10 Lennon, McCartney, and a couple of Harrison? Like, sing Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth.
Sing Leave It.
Yeah, sing whatever.
Sing Let 'Em In.
Sing Let 'Em In. Why doesn't Ringo Starr sing Nobody Told Me? Why didn't he ever cut Nobody Told Me, which
Yeah.
was supposedly written with him and someone in mind? Why wouldn't he? It's the greatest songbook in the world. Sing those songs.
I know.
I don't get it.
Well, he does write or co-write most of the songs he records these days, doesn't he?
Yeah. But
Yeah,
it's-
and most of Rotogravure, right? Didn't he co-write a lot of that?
Some
About
of it.
4 or 5. 4. Yeah.
Whatever happened to him and Vinnie Poncia? He seemed to
I
end
asked him,
suddenly.
and he said it, he was like, I saw Vinny backstage at the Greek Theater. And I was like, and what happened? He goes, I said, hey, Vinny. And he said, hey, Ringo. I said, and then what? He goes, nothing. He went on to Kiss.
Right.
He did, Dynasty and the Peter Criss solo album, and Ringo was a dead act. Like, he was probably like, he got creative control for Bad Boy and da-da-da-da-da-da,
Yeah. This was the first album, Rotogravure was the first album under the new contract, right?
And you want to know why I think it bombed? I think any time that there is a split ownership,
Yeah.
when it's not a global marketing strategy, somebody misses out.
Right. So it was Polydor for the world except US and Canada, which was Atlantic.
Exactly.
So at last a Beatle on Atlantic.
Yeah, yeah. And I really think that in 76 Lennon would have gone Atlantic.
Right.
I really think so.
Yeah.
And that brings us to Between the Lines, which the mythical title, I don't know where that came from, but you can compile this album. There's a 75 song, Tennessee, which morphed into Memories, which morphed into parts of it into Grow Old With Me. All this stuff, all this House Husband music, all is like an interchangeable Brian Wilson composition where this middle eight belongs to this, and he tries for 5 years to make this album, and this piano intro becomes this, and it's helped me to help myself, and it's Memories, and it's whatever. But 75, he's still with me. He's doing a song, Tennessee, about Tennessee Williams, and it's when Lennon goes third person, he's got nothing. That's why, Cry Baby Cry, it doesn't belong with that batch of White Album tracks because it's before that. It belongs to that Hey Bulldog era kind of thing where he's not getting me.
And you're right about that. It actually chronologically belonged there.
Yeah, yeah. So he's doing this. He's digging up a song from 70, Sally and Billy, a piece of which already had been co-opted for Only People. He's still putting that in the demo. He's not realizing I used that already. A great song, She's a Friend of Dorothy's, which... it's just these non sequiturs. He was able, Lennon was so brilliant. He just, all he had to do was open his mouth and you either laughed or thought or, but it's not anything. And musically it's good, and his piano playing is excellent. There's Everybody, which became Nobody Told Me. It's almost intact in 76. It's almost all there.
Except for the chorus, which is a different lyric, which is a brilliant lyric. You can't tell nobody nothing ever, never. That's great.
Yeah.
Nobody told me there'd be days like these. Strange Days Indeed, Most Peculiar Mama is better than that. But that is that's a real interesting thing to say. And the rest of it, I think he nails it there. That Everybody, for me, is the best work of this period in that musically, he's using a lot of, on the piano, he's banging out what we call these major 6 chords. And the major 6 chord, as we've talked about, a regular major chord is based on the scale do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? That's 8 notes. So you got the 1 note, you get the 3 note, and you get the 5 note. So when you put your finger on the piano and you play the 1, 3, 5, you're getting a major chord. And then if you move your pinky up 1 note from the 5, it goes up to the 6. And John's using a lot of those 6s. Da, da, all that throughout all these piano songs. And for me, that's the one where he gets it right, where it works to his advantage and what he's talking about with the everybody's smoking but no one's getting high.
That 6 is all over the Dorothy. All over.
Yes, it's all over Dorothy too, and it's
over.
Also in the Mucho Mungo.
Yeah.
Which was on guitar, but it's still he's got that interval in his head for some reason during this period. This Everybody, becoming Nobody Told Me, has it. For me, of this collection, which you'll go through further, that's the only one. Free as a Bird too, yes, but this Everybody has the potential for greatness. Although I don't see it having a place in 1976 or 77.
None of this music, this mythical Between the Lines, also has, it's these positive sounding 76 demos, and then there's the 77 where he's getting darker. And it has One of the Boys, it has Free as a Bird, it has Whatever Happened to,
Mirror.
Mirror.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who's all, it's catching up with him. This guy could never shed his shit. It was always this fog, And Free as a Bird, which is a downer. You know, he's free. You think about the green card with it. Home and dry.
It's an ironic title and song. In a way, he's
just as trapped as ever.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's lamenting the fact that, well, I'm free as a bird, but I'm aimless. And what is a bird? A bird doesn't even know where he's going. That's like that whole Jonathan Livingston Seagull thing. Like, well, I can fly, but I have nowhere to fly to. Yeah. It's all the same shit. Mirror, mirror is the same thing, too. I look in the mirror and I don't see anything. I mean, think about that. What? You're 36 years old, man. Your second child was just born. You're back with the woman you supposedly love, and you're lost. As usual, I look in the mirror and I don't see anything.
Yeah.
How do you come up with a line like that?
Yeah.
That's Strawberry Fields. That's Look at Me, but the inverse of Look at Me, like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Please identify and recognize my identity because I'm having trouble holding on to it. By 76, yet again, he's not sure of anything.
But in 76, there is happy. I mean, you look at that green card footage. That's as happy as you've ever seen that guy, right? That's a joyful man.
Yeah, and lovely pictures of Yoko with him that day as well. Like they've been through this incredible thing together for 4 years, and finally it's done.
Yeah. And then this trough of 77.
Well, I'm here, but what is this?
Yeah.
I wonder how it was for him to see Silly Love Songs and Let Him In, and then the Wings Over America tour. I mean, Paul on the cover of Time magazine.
I don't think it was good. I don't think. I mean,
and he's knocking on the door too.
April 24th, 76 is the night of the Dakota visit, and they watch Saturday Night Live, and we should, and we're too stoned, so we won't, and this, and then the 25th. McCartney comes and knocks on the door. That's the day. It was the day after that. And he blows him off. And they don't talk. Someone had told me they were out in 77, that the couples went out. Paul and Linda Yoko. I've never heard anything of that there was any type of meeting.
There was a long phone conversation, about 2 hours between Paul and John, but does that predate the Dakota meeting in April or post-dated? I'm not sure.
Which one? About the father?
It's, no, I don't know what they talked about, but the reason I know about it is because Paul mentioned in interviews that because this was the period when they had the offer from Bill Sargent, right, to reunite the Beatles. And Paul says, I just talked to John for 2 hours on the phone. And afterwards, I put the phone down and I was thinking, I knew there was something else I meant to talk to him about. What was it I was going to say? Oh, yeah, we were going to discuss that offer. And they hadn't, they hadn't. Paul laughed because, there's all these millions of dollars on the table. They hadn't even remembered to talk about it. So I'm not quite sure chronologically where that fits with. I would put it.
I think that the first, because we know that there was the December 75 Christmas Carol thing where they come to the door and Gruen lets them in, and they're all on the bed in the Dakota.
Yeah.
And then we know about the phone call when Lennon calls McCartney about Jim. When he finds out about Jim, he calls him.
What's the story on that one? Remind me.
He found out that Jim had died.
Yeah.
And he called McCartney.
Right.
For, you give him condolences.
I see.
Lennon was given tickets for the Garden and gave them to a nanny or whatever. But he is seen leaving on May 24th. Because Vinnie Safante was taking shots, and fans were taking shots of McCartney at the Stanhope, and then running across the park to take pictures of Lennon. And Lennon is leaving for the Rotogravure sessions. He leaves for L.A. the day of McCartney's concert.
At Madison Square Garden.
So those On the Rocks Bob Marley things is the same time. And I'll tell you something. If Lennon had come up and done a giving flowers to McCartney like Ringo did, McCartney looked so great, and Lennon just did not look cool. Just didn't. It would have been like, you're so out of the game. Elton 74, he's in the game. He's the dude.
And that's why he doesn't show. Yeah. And he doesn't want to know of it. Another Silly Love Song topping the charts. And there's the Speed of Sound, a piece of shit record. Number one. He's number one again. Enough.
Yeah.
That's what Lennon's thinking. Enough of this.
Well, speaking of an album that wasn't number one, 33 and a Third, which I loved. I mean, I didn't get it at the time. I got it years later. And that, George Harrison, 78, and Gontrapo are my favorites.
Right.
I love those. I think that's as good as he got.
Better than All Things Must Pass.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think it's more him. My problems with the Harrison Apple stuff, the same way with Lennon stuff. There's not enough Harrison there. It's too much Gary Wright. It's too much take it, whoever, Nicky. I feel that and instrumentally, there's so much guitar and layers. I feel like he's really a part of these tracks.
Yeah.
And I loved that album. And he's playing with an all-black band.
Yeah.
And it's groove. It's, we've talked about this. He's listening to Paul Simon. He's listening to Steely Dan. He's getting some type of vibe off this stuff. You got it when it came out?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was very pleased to have it because I had bought all the George Harrison albums as they came out in the 70s. And so the 33 1/3 was no exception. And I really always did like George a lot. But it was harder and harder to like him in the UK because no one was listening anymore. I mean, his audience was diminishing in the US, but in the UK it had evaporated. I checked the chart positions for 33 1/3 before coming here, and it spent 4 weeks on the chart.
God.
4, peaking at 35.
God.
So it was really
no airplay. Those singles got no airplay there?
No, he didn't have a single chart hit in 76. So this song didn't make I think it was a top 50 in those days. It wasn't yet a 75. I'm not sure when the change came, but didn't break the 50.
God.
No.
How about Cracker Box?
And nothing. Cracker Box Palace, nothing. No, and therefore didn't get onto Top of the Pops because if you're not in the chart, you're not in that show.
Was Whistle Test showing videos? Or you had to be
Whistle
live?
Test, they preferred live, but they did do an interview. Bob Harris did interview George. It wasn't a long one, but it was about 8-10 minutes, and they showed one of the films. I think probably this song. Maybe two of the films.
The footage of him watching This Boy, is that German?
No, that's a really good thing that George did because obviously George was the thing about Extra Texture was he didn't do any promotion at all, virtually nothing on Dark Horse because he was touring in America.
Yeah.
And also, I don't remember him promoting Material World very much,
No.
if at all. Maybe 1 or 2 music paper interviews.
And a billboard.
Yes.
Yeah, a
yes,
billboard.
That's
on
right.
Sunset.
Yeah. So 33 1/3, because it was a new label, a lot of effort. And he went to the TV studios of Granada in Manchester, and they did a very cool thing, which was to sit him down in an edit suite and lace the film of the Beatles on Scene at 6:30 doing Twist and Shout and film him watching it.
Yeah.
And it's always great to see a Beatle watching his past.
And he's had so much love. And when he sees, it was This Boy. And when he goes, John, he was so blind.
That's right, This
Yeah,
Boy. I beg your
he's-
pardon.
he's-
It's a Wanna Hold Your Hand and This Boy.
Yeah, and
that
he goes, he's
watching,
so
yes.
blind. He laughs at Lennon's,
Yes.
Lennon's sight.
And there's a moment in one of those films, I'm not sure if it was This Boy or Wanna Hold Your Hand, where Paul isn't quite sure where to look and ends up looking straight into the camera, which he kind of wishes you could see that he wished he hadn't. And we see George laughing at that moment, and that's a nice moment.
Yeah. And he looked great.
He did. And then he did a good interview with, as it turned out, Tony Wilson, who ended up launching the Hacienda Club and Factory Records a few years later. He was a Granada broadcaster in his spare time.
And then that was it. And then then in like February 77, he goes and starts doing European stuff.
Yes.
With the perm and it's...
Yes, he goes to Holland and Germany and goes down the Grosse
miming on like a live show, on a pop show.
Yeah. So he did, I think he owed it to Warner's to give of himself for that. And he did the 5-city US promotional tour, didn't he, in November 76, where he was really up and happy and no longer ill as he had been.
Now, what do you know about it going south with A&M?
Well, I just remember being shocked at the time because he signed with A&M for Dark Horse, right? Dark Horse Records signed through A&M in 74. And then he called his album Dark Horse. So, and the implication was always was going to be that as soon as the EMI contract expired in Jan 76, he would switch automatically to A&M. Now, I do know that he was offered more money by other labels, but he wanted to go with...
By Capitol. Capitol offered him
Yeah,
more.
I believe so.
Yeah.
He wanted to go with Herb Albert and Jerry Moss and their label that was so well respected. The details are that he was meant to deliver this album by July 76. And as we know, he fell ill. Seriously ill. George was seriously ill at the age of 33 with hepatitis. He turned yellow. He was jaundiced and hepatitis, and it was the result of his, extreme drinking in that period of tequila and brandy and lots of red wine. So he drank himself into serious illness. The record got delayed, and when it was finished, he offered it to A&M, and they said, "You've missed your deadline. It's all over, and we're going to sue you for $10 million for late delivery." So what really happened there? Because why? I mean, they wanted this ex-Beatles so much. And even before his first record is out, they're suing him.
Yeah.
And cancelling the contract. I always wondered what happened if it was a personal relationship that went sour. And there was an interview that I saw preparing for this where George, he intimated in his answer that it was actually Jerry Moss had turned and gone beyond reason. Like, you couldn't reason with him over this. Like, well, the album was late, Jerry, but here it is.
Yeah.
So I often wondered, I have wondered since seeing that, whether that was a personal issue, or a truly personal issue between George and Jerry.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that could have been, but potentially, something happened between them as men. That Jerry really fell out with George and didn't want him on the label anymore and sued him for a spurious reason, it would seem, of late delivery.
Yeah. And you got the album, and you didn't know anybody else that had that album.
Nobody. I remember playing it to someone, and it was just like, this friend of mine said, "Is there slide guitar on every track?" And of course there was.
Yeah.
And that was the point where you realised that George wasn't doing anything other than slide anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a bit dispiriting, because on behalf of other people who didn't want him to be doing slide, it was like, please do something else.
Yeah.
Just so that other people will get back into you.
Yeah.
But they weren't.
Yeah.
They weren't. I liked quite a lot of that album, personally. I mean, I really, really liked Crackerbox Palace.
Yeah. And True Love.
True Love.
And you were talking about
True Love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Why does he sing True Love? I mean, it's a good song, of course, but why did he do it? I think it was because he was fixated with Twoo. And he wanted to sing a song that had Twoo all the way through it, Twoo Love.
Yeah.
And that goes back to Blazing Saddles, the Mel Brooks film, with Madeline Kahn. Yeah. And when she finds out that what she's always read about what we'd now call African American people, males, is Twoo. It's Twoo. I think that appealed hugely to George.
Yeah.
His sense of humour and his fascination with women and parts of his body. And so I think Twoo Love is probably a direct result of wanting to sing Twoo. Yeah. And he sings it in Crackerbox Palace. It's Twoo, it's Twoo.
And True Love was a UK single.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was, and there was a video for it.
Yeah, and in light of the Sex Pistols, you cannot think of a less likely hit than or relevant release than True Love.
Yeah, no one was interested, I'm afraid to say, not in the country that I live in. No one was interested, and it was just slide. I mean, it was nice.
Yeah.
Good album track, but I wanted him to pick up a guitar and do some other kind of solo, you know, or some other kind of lines, than just slide, because we know he could do it, but he was fixed on it. He was completely fixed on it, as if he was afraid to do anything else.
I like 33 1/3. I think it's one of his better albums. I think it's where he starts to become the modern George.
I think it's the good George. I think it's when he finally becomes
where he starts,
George.
gets his legs, and there it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, that record was out of time. It had nothing to do with anything in 1976.
You saw it everywhere. You really did.
It was great. I like the cover.
Yeah.
I like the way he looks on it.
Yeah.
And like Mark, I love Crackerbox Palace. I've told you that before.
Yeah,
I loved it at the time. I thought it had the Beatle magic. Mm-hmm. A little twee, perhaps, but sweet.
But not any more twee than Al Stewart.
No.
He had the bicentennial glasses on that
That's
cover,
right.
really, which was a pretty smart thing to do.
Yeah.
And it was a great title as well, albeit by the time the record came out, he was older than 33 and a third, but still a good title.
But handsome, so handsome, you know?
Yeah. Good record. Good record all the way through. I think it's a strong outing and the beginning of his good run.
Yeah.
From there, he gets better and better and
Doesn't
better
put out a bad
until he
album.
goes out.
Yeah. Beautiful Girl was a track I really liked as well.
Yeah, me too.
And I remember when I finally got the I'm in Mine book, being surprised at how
Early
he
it
would.
was.
Yeah, the song goes back to 69, I think.
So
And
does
how-
Woman. So does Woman, Don't You Cry For Me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You have a notebook. You jotted down some interesting headlines from 76.
Yeah.
Throw those out. I'm curious.
So we have covered a lot of this already, but there was some good stuff there. I mean, Ringo played with the band.
That's
In
right.
76,
Thanksgiving.
didn't he? Was it The Last Waltz?
Yeah.
That was The Last Waltz. Sextet. We haven't talked about Sextet,
Yeah.
the great film that Ringo made
Yeah.
in 76.
Yeah.
That was when his film career was going south.
Yeah. It was all going south.
Yeah.
You know, he just never, these guys, you know, they didn't know when to step back. You know?
Well, one of them knew when to step
Lennon
back.
did, yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like he just film, album, and especially his film career. You know that'll be the day.
Yeah.
Is so brilliant.
Yes.
He was so brilliant in that, effortlessly,
Yes.
and everything else is awful.
Yeah, and he stepped back there when he shouldn't have done, or with hindsight, needn't have done, because he could have been in the follow-up, Stardust.
But that would be too close. To
I guess
home,
so, and that was the reason he gave. But I mean, bearing in mind that That'll Be the Day had been such a great role for him,
Yeah.
it's a pity that he never had a role quite like that again.
It really is like you watch that, and it's like when you see somebody that's not even acting.
Yeah,
It's so second nature.
yeah.
And Sextet, I only saw it once.
Yes,
And Listomania was 75, right?
yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ken Russell film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sextet was just so abysmal. I don't think it got a British release, and it was in the early days of video cassettes that finally this kind of scratchy fifth generation copy made it across the Atlantic, and I couldn't believe how terrible it was.
Yeah.
I mean, just awful. You just wished that he hadn't been in it. You know, you didn't want a Beatle to be in something so crappy as that.
Yeah. It was almost like he got demoted to monkey level. You know? Like taking a shitty role and
Well, your options dwindle, but you're
Yeah.
a workaholic and you know nothing else. What are you going to do?
yeah.
Yeah.
What else you got?
76 was, I mean, it was the year because the contracts ran out with EMI Capital. Then EMI Capital started to get loose with the catalogue, and the rock and roll music compilation was the first one after the contract, and the ex-Beatles hated that because they were powerless to stop it in those days. They couldn't. These days they can stop anything, but in those days they couldn't, and they hated the cover of it particularly. And apparently John offered a cover to Capitol, and Capitol said, "No, don't worry, we've got one already." And it was that one with Coca-Cola and hamburgers and.
But you know,
stuff
the
on
thing
it.
is for American fans, I mean, the font was Roy Kahara, right? Isn't that who did
Probably, yeah.
that font, that Happy Days 50s font? But that photo is near and dear to Americans' hearts because the Beatles' second album is the Beatles' second album group shot, which is still, you see it and your heart goes, you know? And it was like in color. I never had such a problem with it. I didn't like the Coca-Cola. And there was Coca-Cola on the label. There was a thing of Coke on it.
Yeah, strange thing to do. And it was the year when the Hamburg tapes are coming up, and Alan Williams is threatening to cut them up if he can't actually get a sale on them. Do you remember that?
I don't remember
I'd
that, but
forgotten about
I
that.
recently watched that 73 footage.
Yes.
What do you know about that? Where was that from?
That's from a BBC nightly current affairs kind of topical news program called Nationwide. And the guy who was the broadcaster, the journalist on it, was Bernard Falk, and he had been around the Merseybeat scene. I think he did write for Merseybeat in the very early 60s, the newspaper. So he kept tabs on everything. He was the guy who did that piece in 71 that's got the footage of Tommy Moore in it.
Okay.
The interview with Tommy Moore, which is the only interview we have with him, the Beatles drummer. And then he did this piece about the discovery of the tapes, and it was so exciting.
You would think that something would have moved on there, that somebody would have offered. I mean, he did the deal with Lewisohn. Is that who the deal was
Well,
with?
ultimately, in about 76, 77, a guy called Paul Murphy. But initially, in 73, he's trying to get Apple to take it.
Yeah.
And he has those meetings with George and Ringo down in London, and they listen to bits of the tapes, and, Alan is trying to make the million that he never made in the first place, and they listen.
What did they
to
offer him, like £3,000?
I don't know exactly what they offered, but when it didn't work, he said, I'll do it without you, and they said, no, you won't, and it went to court in 77. But it did come out, of course, as we all know.
In 2 different versions. I bought both of them in 77.
Right, yeah.
Both of them to get Sheila.
It gets better and better and better every time you hear it, for me.
Yeah. Well, that Zulot, you have that one? Where it's the
yes,
most pristine.
I do. Yes.
I mean, I'll tell you, people, that Star Club is the fucking shit. Until George has to solo, it is the greatest band you've ever heard. It shits all over Live at Leeds. It shits all over Got Live If You Want It. Get Your Yayas Out. All of it. Yeah. It's the best. And Ramones. And it shits all over the Ramones.
Yeah.
They're the best band.
Yeah, there they were, and they also stopped. They went to court. These were the days when they weren't winning everything. They tried to stop the Beatles tapes with the David Wigg album from coming out, and failed on that one as well. So there was a lot of Beatles stuff going on in '76 because there were the 2 reunion offers. There was
Herb Sargent,
Bill Sargent,
And Bernstein, right?
Yeah, and Sid Bernstein's one was the $230 million for one concert.
And who was going to raise that money? Where was he going to get that money?
I have no idea how, actually, that would have been made.
Possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that much money.
Yeah, Bill Sargent's idea was...
solo sets, right? And then 20 minutes together.
Is that what it was going to be?
One of those was that's what it... It had whatever... You could do whatever you wanted.
Right.
But it had to have 20 minutes together.
God, if you want to think about what ifs, then what songs would they have done individually and then what songs would they have done together? What a crazy premise.
Yeah.
But it was going to be on closed circuit.
Yeah.
But he claimed to have invented or had the means to use a new method of closed-circuit broadcasting that was so much superior to the world heavyweight boxing closed-circuit screenings that were mostly what it was used for in those days.
Which was still pretty high-tech.
Yeah. But, I mean, how would it have covered a rock concert? I mean, these days you can go to a theatre. You don't have to go to Covent Garden Opera in London. You can go and see it in a movie house somewhere.
But there was a thing where there was some type of weird... Oh, this is what... One of them... I don't think it was Bernstein. I think it was Sargent. That the thing that turned them, supposedly, who the fuck knows, that turned them all off was you would get this huge pot of gold, but he owns it.
Yes, that was the Sargent one. He was going to own the...
He owns it.
Own the rights to that one.
Yeah.
I mean, which obviously was really what he was after. He wanted to have that intellectual property for himself, as if they would have signed it over like that.
And like they would ever do anything like that they would ever do anything that they didn't own ever again.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And $230 million, that's ridiculous. I mean, that just annoyed them.
Yeah.
And it appeared in the New York Times, I think, and the International Herald Tribune, which was like a European edition of the New York Times. And Ringo was doing an interview that day with London's Capital Radio. And so naturally the interviewer, Nicky Horn, brought it up with him. And Ringo was really pissed off that it had even come up. And he said that we've now spent 10 minutes talking about that just because some guy wants to get his name in the paper.
That one. Yeah.
So Sid Bernstein, amongst Beatles fans, particularly American, is obviously a bit of a hero. Yeah. And you can understand why, because, And
he was a sweetheart. He really was a sweetheart.
Carnegie Hall and Shea Stadium twice,
Yeah.
But from the Beatles' point of view, he was not they didn't have the affection for him that fans did.
Well, because he became a nuisance. He became and they
a
looked
self-promoter.
at him. Yeah, and it was also that showbiz shtick, he would bump into Lennon on the street and be asking him, and it's like, come on, I'm with my kid, stop,
Yes. So it was a hell of a busy year, 76, and a lot was going on for all four of them.
What do you remember about going to the Wembley shows?
They were anticlimactic, I thought, and they were not well reviewed either, believe it or not.
Why?
I mean, because there was something, I don't know, it was like they just lacked a spark that had been there in 75. They just lacked it. And the venue wasn't right either. It lacked intimacy. It was our sports arena. But everyone is on a flat floor. Maybe it was the same in America. There's no rake seating there. So if you're right at the back, and there was no screens.
Yeah.
And because it was substantially the same show that we had seen in the previous year, I don't know. It just seemed a little bit lackluster. It did seem to be the end of the tour, and it showed like that. They'd been out on the road for a year with this tour now.
Yeah.
And he had that moustache which didn't suit him, and kind of spoiled his look, because in 75 he looked like the Paul that we all knew, and in 76 he looked like somebody else.
There was something that happened after that tour. It all changed.
Yeah.
Like the Beatle mojo changed for them all. They stopped being that band, right?
Top of the Mountain is Wings Over America, 76, and that is it.
It's kind of it for all of them.
It's never the same again.
Yeah.
Because Ringo is heading into Ringo the Fourth and Bad Boy and The Bottle.
Yeah.
Right? And George was heading towards giving up music for a while. Didn't do anything after.
And not caring who bought it.
February 79 was the George Harrison album, right? And so from late 76, there was nothing in 77 or 78.
Mm-hmm.
So it all went south, really.
Yeah, and Lennon retreats.
Musically, I liked, like you do, I like what George was doing, but 2-year gap. There'd been a 2-year gap between All Things Must Pass and Material World, and now there's another 2-year gap. He's obviously not seeking to sustain a career like Paul is. Paul was the only one who was really still out there trying to...
year in, year out.
Here's my new album, this is my new single, here's the video to go with it, and I'm going to be on top of the pops if I can.
Well, let me ask you, Beatle Brain of 1976.
Yes.
What is your favorite memory of 76?
Oh, apart from winning the crown with my robes and sash. First Beatles convention was Norwich in Britain in 1976. Going up to that was great, because it was the first time, even though it wasn't that busy, I was in a room full of Beatles fans for the first time. That had never happened to me before, because I didn't go to any shows in the 60s. So that was good. And Alan Williams playing a little bit of the Hamburg tapes and seeing some Stuart Sutcliffe paintings and buying bootlegs.
Wow.
That was my big thing.
When was the first time you saw some other guy?
Oh, I don't know. Not in the 60s. I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember, actually. It just seems to have been there.
Was it in the Tony Palmer?
That was 77, the All You Need Is Love TV series, and I don't remember it being in that, but I seem to know it maybe just from going to conventions, and it was being screened.
Blew your mind?
Oh, yes, because I always wanted to see the Beatles in the Cavern.
Yeah.
And still, if I could go back to any time in history, I'd go back to a Cavern all-nighter in 61.
Yeah, right.
That would be my thing.
Yeah.
So, so it's just to see any footage of the Cavern, because I went to Liverpool for the first time in 77, and the Cavern was a car park.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was really destroying.
But let me ask you this. In all fairness, when people talk about it, and McCartney talks about it, although still plays that fake venue as though it's something, there's no way they would have let people in this day and age go down there and see shows. I mean, that was a fire trap, right?
Oh, it was a very dangerous place, the Cavern. It was a miracle that there were no deaths down there.
Right?
Yes. Only one way in and one way out.
Yeah. I mean,
even for the band, you'd have to push through the crowd with your amplifiers and guitars.
Terry Sylvester told me, he said it smelled like piss and bleach, and there were rats.
Yes.
And it was the worst.
Yes.
He was like, the Cavern was the hellhole of hellholes.
So even though it was knocked down, had it not been demolished, it would still have had to have been altered.
Yeah,
because the laws changed,
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it was amazing to see the Some Other Guy film. It was a good time for me being a Beatle fan. There weren't many of us in Britain, and somehow you felt like you were in some little club.
Did you feel like it would come back?
No.
You didn't feel like it would come back?
No, and it only, in my view, it only came back because John Lennon was murdered. You know, in the UK. That was the resurgence. But what a way to earn it. Truly just the worst.
Thanks to Mark, as always. An absolute pleasure having him with us. For me, 76 is love isn't silly at all. You can't beat that. And then two other tracks. Woohoo! Nobody told us, nobody know. Don't Go Breaking My Heart is
Stevie,
Beatles.
And Stevie.
And Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
Sir Duke. Songs of the Key of Life. That's the Beatles album of 1976, along with Hotel California, by the way. Silly
Stevie,
Love Songs,
yeah.
Sir Duke, and Don't Go Breaking My Heart.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with that?